It's my pleasure to participate in this symposium. I found the previous speakers all very helpful. What I'm going to talk about is the finish line. So you've gone through that job search process, you've given that dynamic, fantastic seminar that has convinced everybody that you're the best person in the world. You've gone through the interview, you've met with people, you've got a sense of the place, and now you're at the finish line, the negotiations. The opportunity to begin that discussion of negotiation really shows that you're at the culmination of what really is quite an arduous process of finding the right job. And typically, this would begin around the time of a second visit. There's several models. Sometimes you'll have that discussion perhaps in an exit interview with the chair or somebody on the first visit, and you'll start talking about what you need to succeed. But typically, it would be something that you would start doing when you come back for a second visit, where there's obvious that there is interest on both sides in continuing this discussion. And it's very important to know that this is not a process where you're going to show up, the chairman's going to say, here's what we can offer you, and you're going to say yes or no. It's an iterative process, and it may involve many, many emails, phone calls, a draft of an offer letter that you can respond to, and then finally the final letter which you're going to sign and agree to. So you need to know that this may be a process that's going to take quite some considerable time as you go back and forth because it is a negotiation. It's not just an acceptance of an offer. It's a negotiation to get what you want. What actually can you negotiate as a new, and I'm focusing mostly on academic positions in this presentation. Well, first and foremost, in most institutions, you can negotiate to some degree your salary. So even if it's an institution that has published salary scales for faculty, you should discuss to what extent that salary is negotiable. And certainly most medical school positions have a negotiable component for salary. You can negotiate the lab that you might be moving into, the size of the lab, where that lab is located, proximity to other colleagues who might be good collaborators. If it's a lab that's in an older building, you can negotiate that it might be renovated or remodeled to fit your particular type of research. If you need a small room for electrophysiology, or if you need particular tissue culture facilities, all of these are things that you can discuss. We've already heard a little bit about the startup package, and that can encompass a whole host of different things. It could encompass major equipment that you might need to do your research, a budget for supplies before you're able to generate your own research funding. Similarly, you might have support for personnel, whether that would be technical support or a postdoc or support for a graduate student. And then depending on the salary structure of the institution, the startup package may include some guaranteed support for your salary for a period of time, and then the expectation that you will then generate grant funding to support part of your salary. The other thing you can negotiate is actually what you will be doing when you take this job. How much time will you be devoting to teaching versus research versus service activities? Can you negotiate to be relieved of teaching for the first couple of years while you get your lab up and running and your funding in place? You can also negotiate for assistance with moving, for, as we've heard, assistance with relocation of your spouse or partner. And at the end of the day, you can basically negotiate just about anything that will help you to do your job. Now, this does not mean that you can negotiate for anything. Doesn't mean you can negotiate for the golf club membership or the the wardrobe allowance or whatever. Some things that might be negotiable in the corporate world are not going to be available to you in academia. But if you keep things focused on things you need to do your job, then just about anything is fair game. How do you approach this conversation? So I think it's very useful at the outset to sort of sit down and make a list of the things, just free associate, just brainstorm about what you might like to get in your first position, in terms of salary, lab space, startup packages, job descriptions, whatever it might be. And then you need to just take a hard look at those and really characterize 3 types of things that you might be asking for. The first are the essential requests. Without these things, this is a total deal breaker, and there's no point in me going to this institution. The second are things that would be desirable. Yes, it would be wonderful to have lab space in that new building, but the building across the street that maybe is not quite as fancy would also work for you, provided you have the right amount of space and the right amount of startup package. So desirable requests are things that you could give way on if that becomes a sticking point in the negotiation. And then there might be some dispensable items that, yes, it would be nice if you didn't have to teach for the first 2 years, but you're not too bothered about that. So those are the things that you can give way on very easily. So have a list of priorities for your negotiation package. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that this is not a competition. You're not trying to beat out the institution and just sort of grab everything you can and therefore come out of this a winner. You need to be looking for a win-win outcome. The institution, first and foremost, should want you to succeed. Basically, they're going to be making a major investment in you. When they're thinking of investing the startup package, the time it takes to interview candidates, the money that it costs to actually run the search process, they should want you to succeed because they certainly don't want to be doing this a couple of years down the road. Likewise, you don't want to sort of take the department to the cleaners and then find that down the road you've so raided the coffers that they no longer have any resources either to recruit new colleagues that might be assets for you or to help you out down the road. So don't try and just grab everything that you can. And you also need to negotiate in good faith. Don't go asking for things that you neither want nor need. Understand what some of the limitations might be in terms of the institution itself. And then if you get asked a question, you need to respond promptly. Don't just sort of leave the department hanging on. So what are some of the ways that you can succeed in this process? First of all, knowledge is power, and I'll talk a little more about that, but you've heard that from several of the other speakers. You need to do your homework and be prepared and understand what the lay of the land might be. It's very helpful when you're having these emails and conversations and discussions back and forth to stay focused on just a small number of items. And typically I would say in each call or email, just stay focused on no more than 3 agenda items. And it's also helpful if you set up a time to call the chairman of the department, for example, that you tell him or her, well, tomorrow I'd like to have a discussion about the size of the startup package so they can start having the idea. So don't just come out of complete left field with, when you get on the call, oh, by the way, the salary's not big enough or something. Give the chairman an idea of what you're thinking about ahead of time so that they have time to do their homework about what is possible. You need to identify what the sort of negotiating gurus call the super objective. So what does that mean? That means the sort of high level thing that both of you can agree upon. Both of you can agree that you want to succeed. They want you to succeed, you want to succeed. So if you start at that high level super objective, then you can use that to bridge to each of your own objectives in saying, well, if we both agree that my success is important, then I need a piece of equipment X to succeed. The other thing is you need to get everything in writing. And this is really important because down the road, the chairman may change, the institution may change, all kinds of things may change. If you don't have it in writing, you don't have it. Even if you have it in writing, sometimes you don't have it. But if you don't have it in writing, you certainly don't have it. And sometimes the person that you're negotiating with is busy or lazy or a little bit slow in actually putting those things in writing. You write it down for them. If they don't give you a written summary of the discussion. You write them a little letter, or you write them an email, and you make a list and you say, this is my understanding of our discussion on the phone today. We have agreed to the following. And you send it to them and you say, if I don't hear otherwise from you, I will assume that you agree with this. And the other thing is that negotiating, like the job talk, like the interview, is part of a performance. And you can strengthen your position by using strong body language. Sit up straight, engage the person directly, look them in the eye, use a powerful stance if you're sitting at a table, breathe deeply. We had a wonderful presentation at UCSD a couple of months ago from a theater professor talking about how you can use breathing and, if you just stand up and take a deep breath, and this will then help you negotiate more effectively. So knowledge is power, and this is so much easier these days. There is so much information out there on the internet. I've listed a few sources. You can benchmark the salary by looking at what similar positions are paid in similar departments. The Association of Chairs of Departments of Physiology have an annual survey both of salary offers in departments of physiology and also startup packages. So you can look for your region of the country, for your level of position. The AAMC also has a huge amount of data on medical school salaries across the country at all different levels of appointments. You can also talk to people that you know, colleagues in your own department where you are now, people who've been recently hired at a variety of institutions, and ask them, what was your offer? What kind of startup package did you get? What's your salary? People are usually not too reticent to share this information, and if you're in public institutions, salary information is actually public information, and you can usually go to the institution and find that out. You want to sit down with a senior person and kind of road test your wish list. I've had a number of mentees during my time at UCSD who've gone out and gotten positions at other institutions, and we've sat down and we've gone through that list of things that I'll say, that's a little unrealistic when you're sort of just finishing a postdoc and you're asking for a $2 million startup package. That's probably a little beyond the realm of possibility, but also vice versa, if you're asking for too little, it's a good thing to road test it. And you want to actually rehearse this. You want to go through, how are you actually going to ask for these things? You may be in the fortunate position, as we heard, that you may have several simultaneous offers to weigh up. And perhaps at a later stage of your career, that might include an internal offer from the institution where you already are, or a retention offer when they get wind that you might be thinking about leaving. It's very important when you weigh up these offers that you consider the whole package, not just the salary, as we've heard, not just the startup, but is this a place that you want to be? You need to trust your gut. I'm a GI physiologist, so I know the gut is very smart. Trust your gut. How will you feel in this place? Is this a place where you feel that you will find people that you like, that you trust, that you can connect with? And not just scientifically, will there be people that you can connect with socially? Because that sort of, when you're an academic and a scientist, you find that you're pretty much, we heard, sort of obsessive compulsive. You find that your life actually revolves around the university. So you want to make sure that there's people that you like. You need to make sure that you can take into account any personal considerations, any family considerations, geographic issues. And then also, you don't have to rush this decision. Even if the department says, I need to know by Monday, you can say, well, I won't be ready to give you an answer by Monday. You can't spin it out forever, but you don't get pressure to rush. If you are indeed an internal candidate, you have to estimate your bargaining position. So basically, how valuable have you made yourself, and what would it take to replace you? But you also have to recognize that you probably won't get the same kind of offer that you would get if you went outside of the institution, because internal candidates never get the same kind of package. But there may be considerations that make it worth staying. You may have wonderful collaborations established. You may have social ties in the area. Your partner or your spouse may have a very good job. And so all these considerations added together might make it worth staying. You can also consider negotiating, particularly at an early stage of your career, for some kind of transition or contingent plan. So you can say, yes, I will accept the fact that I'm going to be sharing a lab with my former mentor for a while, but if I get that R01, what happens then? Will I shift to a different position? Will I get different salary structure? Can I get my own lab space? And you can get these things in writing. But I think even if you're considering staying in the place where you trained, it's really important to go out and test the market. And I say this to all of our trainees at UCSD. You have to go out there and at least see what's out there, see what you might be able to get on the outside. I did want to make, since this is a session from the Women's Committee, I wanted to say a couple of things about the gender-based pitfalls in negotiations. Women have historically been very disadvantaged in negotiating for positions, and there's a wonderful book called Women Don't Ask, which talks about women's failure to negotiate in all kinds of domains. But one very important conclusion from this book is that there are modest decrements in starting salaries. You know, maybe it doesn't matter that you get paid $3,000 less than the man down the hall. But over the course of your whole career, this is millions of dollars that you're leaving behind. Women also typically undersell their accomplishments, and in this book, they surveyed men and women who were seeking the same job and asked them, what kind of salary expectations do you have of this position? And women reported 3 to 32% lower salary expectations than those of men seeking the same job. And then this came up in the first talk, is sort of personal or other circumstances that may be deal breakers if they come out at the last minute. So I'm actually, with the two-body problem, I'm a real proponent of revealing that as early as possible, because departments are very sensitive and open to having those discussions. But if you wait till you've already signed your offer letter and you said, oh, by the way, my husband needs a job, then that might kill the whole deal. This is the authors of this book, Women Don't Ask, Babcock and Lasheva. But this I found really cute. Men, when asked to pick a metaphor for a negotiation, men said winning a ball game, participating in a wrestling match, very positive metaphors. Women chose a trip to the dentist, and I don't like going to the dentist at all, so try and think about it in a more positive light. So in conclusion, in high-stake negotiations, such as for your first position, it can be really, really exciting, but it can be absolutely terrifying as well, because you feel like you're going to screw it up no matter what you do. But if you prepare carefully, do your homework, it will help you get what you want and need. And remember the super objective. You're all trying to get to the same finish point. It's not a win-lose proposition. It should be win-win. Get your friends, get your mentors, get anybody that you can pin down for a glass of wine to go through your wish list. Remember that the money is a part of the equation isn't everything, and good luck with this.